start with what we would call our real chocolate first because this is going to take a little longer. Now we're going to do it the kind of easy way. We're going to do it right in the microwave. You can temper it right in the microwave, or you can use the double boiler method. So basically, we take a pot with a little bit of water and bring it to not necessarily a boil, but warm it because chocolate is very temperamental and you want to melt it slowly. Chocolate should not be like melted like that because it'll burn, okay? And if you burn it, you've ever seen your chocolate dry and you'll have like those streaks of lighter color in it? That's called blooming, and that's because you overheated the chocolate. So then when it dries, it'll have like these streaks in it. So it doesn't mean that the chocolate is bad. It doesn't mean that you can't eat it, but it just won't have that nice shiny appearance. You've seen it maybe if you had like an old candy bar that maybe you had sitting out on a counter, it melted a little bit, then you tried to put it in the refrigerator, then you open it up and it'll look like a different color. It'll almost look like a different color, and that's from the blooming. So today we are going to do our chocolate right in the microwave. I don't even have my fancy thermometer. I'm home. I don't really have any baking things at home. So I just have a regular like little pocket thermometer that I just kind of keep on hand. All right. I just have my little pocket thermometer that I keep on hand, nothing fancy. Obviously you could use a lot of people are using like the infrared ones, but this will work for tonight. I got a couple strawberries. We're going to dip like 2 in the real chocolate, and then we're going to dip a couple in the compound chocolate so that you can see the difference between the two, the difference in the melting and also the difference in the outcome. So first things first, I'm going to chop up my chocolate. So chopping it is just going to help it to melt a little faster. So um, it's recommended when you do it in the microwave that you do it on like a 50% high. You know how like if you were defrosting something. Um, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it in like 30-second increments. So I did like half a bar earlier just to make sure. And this is how it comes in a bar. And also, let's go over the price, right? So this in the grocery store today was, I believe, $3.19 for 4 ounces of chocolate. And then we have our compound chocolate, and this is 1.5 pounds. Okay, this is 24 ounces. And I think it just went up because it used to be like $3.79, and I think when I bought it this week is like $4.19. So everything's going up. I think this just went up, but $4.19 for 24 ounces versus $3.19 for 4 ounces. So we already know that there's a price difference. So if you are using real chocolate, you are going to charge more for whatever treats it is that you're dipping. Most of the time, I would save this for like my strawberries, like that fancy $100 box that I'm doing. I would use real chocolate. And I would probably go and get a better chocolate than this. This is from the grocery store. I might go to the Restaurant Depot or even like a chocolate store and try to buy something a little better. The higher percentage of cacao, the better the chocolate is.
They sell that kind of chocolate at Restaurant Depot?
They do. They have some. They have like the Ghirardelli chocolates. Those are a good one. And they have another brand at Restaurant Depot. I rarely ever buy it because it comes in such large bulk. And
Mm.
when I'm doing it, it's normally for like a specialty item. So for the most part, I use almond bar. Okay, unless I'm doing like a deluxe box, some type of specialty box, then I'm going to go in and do my chocolate. So I normally will look for something in a smaller form like this. All right, so I'm gonna chop a little bit of this down. So what you want to do is when you are doing your chocolate, I always leave a little bit. I won't melt it all. I'll leave a little for seething, and that's kind of like when you're tempering it and you're checking the temperature. If it's a little hot, to cool it down, what you can do is add more chocolate into it to cool it down versus waiting for it to cool. All right. So I'm going to pop this in my microwave, and I'm going to start just on 30 seconds. And let's see how long it takes.
I've seen where adding the unmelted chocolate to the melted chocolate is also like a hack for tempering. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So really, it's just getting it to the temperature that you need it to be. So it's not necessarily a hack. So once I do this and I check the temperature. So the temperature for I want to make sure I tell you the correct temperature because it's different. Is approximately 86 to 88, but let me tell you the exact. So dark chocolate for correct tempering is between 88 to 90 degrees. Milk chocolate is between 86 and 88, and then white chocolate is between 82 and 84. So you have really like a 2 degree, and if you go above too much, it's not going to temper correctly and it's not going to harden correctly. So what happens is when I go to start when I go to start seeing what my temperature is on my chocolate, if I need it to be between 86 and 88 and it's at 95, instead of waiting for it to cool down, you would add a little bit more chocolate to it and cool it down. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's why you're adding more chocolate to it. It's only to pretty much bring it to the temperature you need it to bring it to. So it's not necessarily a hack. It's just kind of like a faster way to cool it down. But if you put too much in and you get it too cool, you got to warm it back up. So you have to be very, very, very careful and very fast. So I like to leave a little extra chocolate if I can, so that if it's too hot, I don't have to sit here for too long and wait for it to cool off. Because that could take, sometimes if you make it a little too warm, it could take another 15 or 20 minutes just to get it back down to the right temperature if you don't have more chocolate to add into it to cool it down. So as far as melting the chocolate, you're doing it the same, whether it's the real chocolate or the compound chocolate. You want to melt it in like 30-second increments. This is just a little bit more forgiving. But as you see, it's still, you want to move your chocolate around. And this is going to be the same even if you're using a double boiler, you're constantly moving your chocolate around because what will happen is it'll start to melt underneath and you won't think it's melting because it's still solid on top. And sometimes you just need to move it around to start getting it to melt. So this chocolate should never be hot. You shouldn't stick your finger in here and burn your finger on your chocolate. Because think about it, if it needs to be between 80, 86, and 90, that's not even body temp. That's a little cooler than body temp. So chocolate should never be so hot that it burns. If you pick up your chocolate out of the microwave and it's super hot on the actual bowl or container, you know that it's too hot. So even if you're using compound chocolate, you don't have to necessarily you don't have to temper that and get it to a certain temperature. But if you overheat it, it'll start to seize up and it'll make it get super thick. Okay. So you'll be stirring it and it'll start to like harden almost by itself. And you're wondering why it's hardened because it's probably burnt. To get used to how long you need to do it, like 30-second increments, 45 minutes, depending on how much you're melting, or put your microwave on like I said, like that 50% power. You know how you can bring the power of it down, like if you were using it as a defrost. So see how now it's still solids in there, but I want to start mixing it. So the more I mix it, you'll notice the more it starts to get fluid. So I want to mix it as much as possible because this might actually be done. So just because you still see solid pieces in there, don't mean put it back in the microwave. It means mix it more.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I came in late. So when you use like the almond bark, are you able to use another oil with it to thin it out even more or no?
You can, yes. I use we talked about this last week. I normally use like a solid coconut oil to thin it out.
Okay.
Now when I use this almond bark, if you're melting it correctly, I never have to thin it out. And we're going to melt this as well, and I'll show you how it comes out when I melt it. All right,
Okay,
so so we're doing our real chocolate now, right? So you can see, look how nice and fluid and thin this is. This is with the consistency we want. So because it's nice and fluid, I don't see any lumps in here. I'm going to go ahead and see what the temperature is on this chocolate. And I said, we don't have nothing fancy tonight, y'all. Either we just got a regular old thermometer, all right? We're doing this old school. You can use this for like candy or like candy apples because it only goes up to, what's this one? It only goes up to 220. All right, so I'm quickly going up to looks like I'm almost at 90. And I need this to be between about 86 and 88. So I'm not that far off. So if it was warmer, let's say it was more like around the 95 mark, I would add more chocolate to it to cool it down. But because I'm very close to where I need it to be, I'm just going to let this sit for maybe 30 seconds or so. Stir it a little bit more, because if I put more chocolate in this now, I'll probably cool it down too much and then I would have to reheat it. But this chocolate, look at how now, what would happen is if I dip this now, I could dip it now. But what would happen is once it cools, it's not going to harden to that hard crack. It's going to still say, I don't know if you've ever tried some of these chocolate, like if you just dip this and it's not tempered, it won't harden when it dries. You would have to put it in a refrigerator to try to get it to harden. And then it's not going to have that snap. It's going to be like a soft, like a breakable. You get what I'm saying? It's not going to snap. And what we want is when you bite into that strawberry for it to snap. All right. I love this. This is what you want. Even when you're using almond bark, this is how fluid you want your chocolate to be. And we weren't that much off. So let's check the temp again. Let's see where we are. And you got to move quickly because it'll cool down quickly too. And it'll be like, oh man. And then plus I don't have a lot of chocolate in here. So, all right. So I'm still very close to 90. So I'm going to I have like a couple little shreds in here. I'm going to take a couple of these little shreds and put in here and see if we can cool it down. So again, just going to add a little bit and this is going to cool it down instead of waiting for it to cool down. So if you just keep mixing it, those solids are going to mix right in. And this is only at 90 degrees. So your chocolate does not have to be hot to use it. It shouldn't be hot. So I'm just going to keep mixing. Make sure everything is mixed well. All right, and let's hurry up and check our temp again and see where we are. I'm going to wipe this off to make sure we get it clean. Let's try it again. All right, we're still at 90, so I'm going to add a little bit more chocolate to cool it down. I don't want to add too much because I don't want to have to pop it back in the microwave. So cut that down a little bit. So as you can see, is tempering chocolate super hard? No. It just takes technique and it takes a little bit more time and it's going to cost you a little bit more money. So when you go to a chocolatier or one of these chocolate factories or a store that specializes in fine chocolates and you're wondering why one piece of chocolate costs $10, this is why. This is considered a cheap chocolate. Like this is a real chocolate, but we just got this from the grocery store. This isn't even a really good chocolate. You see what I'm saying? And it's time consuming. So I know when I first started and I worked at the restaurant, I worked at R2L as a pastry cook, we weren't even allowed to work with the chocolate because it's like, once you mess it up, this is not something that it'd be like, oops, I'm sorry, I burnt it, toss it and do it again. They're not trying to hear that after they just spent $50 a pound on chocolate. You know what I mean?
So would you rather use the baker's chocolate opposed to the candy melts?
Nope, I love my almond bark. The
Okay.
only time I'm going to use this is if I'm doing a specialty or like a deluxe box. So again, that chocolate covered strawberry tower that I showed you guys, that's going to be my over the top item. That's going to be $100. I'm going to use real chocolate. It'll
Okay.
have a different taste. It'll have a different look. And I can say like this is specialty chocolate. You know what I mean? Fine chocolate. But my regular chocolate covered strawberry box that I'm going to do for $45, $48 or whatever, they're going to be with this. And again, most people really don't know the difference. You'll know the difference once you taste it. You know the difference between chocolate and a candy melt because a candy melt is really just a chocolate flavored candy. Remember, if whoever was here in the beginning, the ingredients in this is like a solid fat, like a cocoa butter or vegetable oil and cocoa powder. This doesn't have real cacao in it. This doesn't have real cocoa in it. The chocolate has 56% cacao in it. You get what I'm saying? So you're going to taste the difference. This is just a flavored candy. All right, let's see where we are. See if we're still over or under. All right, I think I'm about to say we're under and I got to put it in the microwave. All right, so we are really like right there. I'm at about 88. I'm at about 88, y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and dip my strawberries. We'll put in the classroom section. I'm going to put a downloadable file with all of this information, the step by step, all of the temperatures for the different ones because it's a different temperature for dark, milk, and white chocolate. I'm going to load that up in classroom tomorrow. All right, so let's go ahead and dip a couple of these. I'm going to let them dry and see how they come out. First of all, y'all, let's talk about how good these strawberries look. I said, now when Valentine's Day comes, they going to look sad.
Look good those look.
Don't they look really like, it looks like the perfect, like a fake strawberry, right?
Mm-hmm. And they don't have the white tops.
Nope. Nice thick stems on them. It's at home, so I'm not really worried about it being too fancy. And I would normally use like a toothpick in mine because I like to not break my stem off. But you can see how it comes up. It's nice and fluid. It wasn't hard to get in there. I normally just scrape just a little bit so it's not too much pulling on the end. And then I already have my silicone mat there. So if I don't have a toothpick, I normally grab it up by the stem like that. And I'm just going to do one side. I always take it out and then do the other side. I don't like to do a lot of twisting. That's kind of how you'll lose your stem or lose your strawberry. So I like to pick it up and dip it again. Get that excess off as much as possible. All right, put it right on my thing. All right, and then we're going to set this to the side. Now, another thing with real chocolate versus compound chocolate, you'll see the real chocolate also takes a little longer to harden. When we do this compound chocolate, and you'll know when you use this almond bark, it hardens like really fast immediately. This takes a little longer. But if we tempered it correctly, it will harden. If my temperatures were off, it won't harden. It'll still be soft. So we'll see. So now let's take our almond bark. Chop a little bit of that down. Any questions while I'm chopping this down and putting this in the microwave?
Do you wash your strawberries in a vinegar water solution before dipping them?
Yep, I usually put them like maybe like a cap full of vinegar or like a half a teaspoon of salt, either one. And that also helps them to last longer too. So like
Right.
when Valentine's Day do come, like I won't wait until Valentine's Day is on like a Friday. I'll
Yeah.
probably start looking for my strawberries maybe like Wednesday. So the key is like that vinegar or that salt kind of helps to preserve them a little bit and keeping them dry. So after I wash them, like this is nice and dry, I pat them dry, and then when I put them in the refrigerator, I leave them uncovered because
Yeah.
you don't want any condensation building up. Like if you put that plastic over it, that'll like cause that condensation and make them get wet again. So the key is keeping them dry too, as much as possible.
Yeah, that's why I
And you
haven't
don't,
practiced.
yeah, and you don't need to do it for long. Don't leave it soaked. Like I remember once I was doing something like just working, and I had them soaking in that vinegar for like too long, and it made the strawberries like like soft, like it like ate away at it a little bit, if that
Yeah,
makes
that's what
sense.
happened with my strawberries over the weekend. I think I
Yeah,
put
if you leave
too
them
much.
sit in there too long, that's a no go. So I normally put mine in there maybe for about like really just 5 minutes. Cool water. I like get them all in there and just let them soak, and then I just rinse them down and I pat them dry, and then I let them dry out on the like a countertop so they get nice and dry. And then if I'm dipping them for later, I just like put them in the refrigerator like uncovered and make sure they stay as dry as possible. All right, looking good. We'll see. And then also, if we want to like, fancy it up a little bit, make that chocolate taste a little bit more like chocolate, you could also, we talked about this too, mix a little bit of this chocolate in with your compound chocolate. That'll give it a nice, richer taste as well. All right, so it's the same thing with our compound chocolate. All right, see how it's still like that, and we want to start to move it around, see how it's melted on the bottom. And again, it's the same thing. Now, I don't need to temper this, but I know that it shouldn't be hot to touch. So I'm just going to start mixing it up. So a lot of times when you still see these solids, you'll be like, oh, let me put it back in there. It's not melted enough. You just need to stir. So this is probably done. I just had this in there. There wasn't a lot of chocolate though. I had this in there for, I think, like 35 seconds. Now, if I was doing that whole thing, like when I'm at the bakery and I do the whole thing, I'll put it on like a minute at a time and then I'll stir. Another thing that I do, I like to melt it in something glass. So I'll use like either a glass measuring cup or I use coffee cups. And I know that sounds crazy, but I use coffee cups like when I'm doing like cake pops and cake sickles because it's taller. And remember how I said, like, I don't like to do all that twisting. It'll fall off the stick. I want to be able to dip it once and bring it up. So I like something taller so that I can kind of overflow it with chocolate and do one dip. So not only does the coffee mug keep it warm, so it'll help to keep my chocolate melted longer, so I don't have to keep re-melting it as often. And it's also taller, so I can use it. So this is my compound chocolate. I haven't added anything to this, y'all. And you see how fluid it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't add any. Um, I wouldn't need to add any oil to this. So if it's coming out super thick, I would say that it's probably because you are overheating it and maybe burning it. And then it'll, what they call, it'll start to seize up. And this is why I love this so much. So like candy wafers, like the candy wafers that you get from like Michael's. So I still have some chunks in here. I'm gonna put it in there for maybe 10 seconds. So like the little wafers like they have at Michael's or like Hobby Lobby. I feel like they don't melt as thin as the candy melt. I mean, as the almond bark. I feel like they melt really thick, and then you have to add some kind of oil
Yeah.
to it. So I really don't. I don't like those at all. That's just my preference.
Okay.
The only time I use those is either like in a crunch because I can't get what I need with the almond bark, or for dark colors. So like reds or like a black. If I can just get black candy melts, I just rather get black candy melts than having to get more um, color, because you need to get an oil based color for chocolate. If you try to add gel food coloring, that's also going to thicken it up. I meant to say that before. I don't know if you guys are adding gel food coloring. If you add gel food coloring to your chocolate, it's going to automatically make it thick. So
Yes.
you have to use an oil based food coloring for chocolate.
Have you ever used that powdered version?
I have. I don't feel like it gives me a nice color. Maybe I haven't found a good brand. So I
Question.
tried it once and I didn't feel like it gave me like a good enough color. I felt like I had to use, like, it came in like this little jar. I felt like I had to use so much of it. I
Yeah.
just never tried it again. Do you like the powders?
I was going to ask you about the powders because I'm getting ready to try it today.
Okay. Yeah, I've used the powders. I didn't love them. So I never bought them again. I like the oil based colors because I can use, so I don't know if I ever showed y'all, it's called Color Mill. It's a little more expensive, but it's very true to color. And I like it because I can use it. And I don't use that all the time. I use that really on my specialty orders as well because it's a little more expensive. But it's the oil-based color, and you can use it both in your buttercream and in your chocolate. But your gel color, you can't use in chocolate. You can, but it's going to get super thick, and you're going to have to add a bunch of oil to it. All right, so I'll pop that in for another 10 seconds. And this is just as fluid as our real chocolate, quote unquote, as you see. No oil added. So let's dip this and see how we do. And again, I don't have to temper that at all. Don't need to temper it.
Oh, okay.
Don't need to temper it. I'm just looking for the right consistency and just to know that we melted it correctly. All right. So again, we're just going to dip, bring it up. Try to get as much off as possible. I don't scrape too much on the bottom because I don't like the bottom bare. Put that there. This one don't have as much of a stem. I might lose this one. So I like to put toothpicks in mine because I'd be scared that my stem is going to break off if I'm just holding it by the stem. But I don't have any toothpicks. This one a little white on the top, but those other ones look nice. So this is what we were talking about, like getting those strawberries, right? Like how many boxes would you need to really get a good dozen of strawberries? So those are only 5 strawberries. And this is what I have left: 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Like I would have to use all of these for 1 dozen. And I don't even like all of these. I hate these. They look like I always say they look like butts. Like, I mean, I wouldn't mind it, like, but see, so you see how that comes to a nice point? I like the ones that come to a point. So when I'm doing like a box or something, I try to make sure that I get ones that are very close to the same shape and the same size. Because it just looks weird if you have a big one, a small one, a flat one, a pointy one. So when I'm looking for the berries that I want to use, I'm trying to use the ones that look. So even if you don't mind using the ones that are flat, you need to try to get as many of those as possible that are the same shape and close to the same size. Like this one is very much smaller. I wouldn't want to use this one. You see what I mean? So to get a good dozen, I would need at least 2 of these probably. And then if you want to use real chocolate, let's add that in. So just think about that when you're doing your cost, how we did our breakdown in costs and how much it's costing us for our product. That it takes longer for our real chocolate. This is our real chocolate and it's still melted. See? Now I could use this. It's no longer tempered because it's too cool. I'm sure it is after all this time. But if I wanted to still continue to dip, I would just pop this back in the microwave for a few seconds, bring it back to the temperature that we needed. So it's not like it's not good anymore. You just have to bring it back to the temperature. Now, once you burn it, if you go over too much and it burns and it starts to seize up, it's ruined. You can't do anything with it. But if it starts to cool down, you just need to rewarm it. And you'll start to see this is going to start to thicken up a whole lot quicker than that one does. So let's take a look and see what we have. Any questions so far, guys? So do we understand the difference between our compound chocolate and our real chocolate? And again, up to you on when you choose to use it or if you choose to use it. Just like scratch baking versus box baking, I think there's a place for everything. So it's totally up to you. It's totally up to what you want to do, how much you want to charge, and how creative you want to be. Again, only time I use the real chocolate is when I do what I would call like a deluxe box. Like I told you before, I don't do a lot of chocolate treats. They're tedious, and for some reason, I just feel like it takes a lot of time, and at the end, I don't really feel like I've made as much. I just don't feel like it was worth my time. Honestly, I don't.
That's why I
And
won't mess
some
with
people charge a
people.
lot more for their treats that are just treat makers. Maybe if I was just a treat maker, it would make more sense for me. But really, the only time I do it is like most of the time it's like an add-on. So somebody wants a cake, and then they'll want chocolate covered strawberries and cake pops or Oreos to match. Like it's a whole
Mhm.
table thing that they're doing. But to just do chocolate covered strawberries, I'll do them for Valentine's Day, but you won't see them like on my website. Other than that, I'll do them if someone requests, but I don't really promote them, and that's just what I like to do. Yeah, it can be very tedious, but I love them for any of the holidays that come up because they make for great gift boxes. So I love edible gifts, and gift boxes are great for Valentine's Day. Mother's Day is coming up. I do them for Mother's Day. I do them for Father's Day. I do them for Valentine's Day. Sometimes for like back to school stuff, a little bit unless somebody asks for them. But other than that, I really kind of stay away from them. So we chopped our chocolate. I like to use most of it, leave a little bit left over just to cool down your chocolate if you need to. Um, we have the different temperatures. Dark chocolate is 88 to 90. Milk chocolate is 86 to 88 degrees. And I'm going to post all this tomorrow, guys. And then white chocolate is 82 to 84 degrees. Get you a thermometer. This one was a very inexpensive one. I got this from I think like restaurant store. This one was literally like $2. It was like $1.99. Or if you had a one that you use on your kid's forehead, same thing. That's the only one that they're using when you see them putting it in the bag. They're not expensive either. So if you're going to be doing a lot of it, then I would get one of those. It would be a lot faster too. Don't overheat it. Do it in short intervals. Make sure that you're mixing properly. And that's going to be the same with both, whether you're using a compound chocolate or your real chocolate. As you're mixing it, do it in 30-second to 45-second intervals. Make sure you are melting it slowly and make sure you are mixing as you go. Even when you see those solids, mix, 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 because sometimes that's enough and you don't have to keep putting it in there. The container itself should never feel hot to your hand. You should be able to hold it. Even the compound chocolate shouldn't be higher than your body temp. So if you can feel that it's a difference and it feels warm, just let it sit and cool a little bit, mix it up a little bit more, and then start dipping your treats. I mean, it doesn't have much of a different look. Unless you're going with like a dark chocolate versus a milk chocolate. I got milk like a milk chocolate, so we would be able to see the difference. And it's really not a difference. It's nice and hard. So I know we tempered it correctly. I didn't have to put it in the refrigerator or anything to get it to be hard. We just let it sit out at room temp. That took maybe about 15 minutes or so, whereas though this one hardened literally in like probably 2 or 3 minutes. So that is the difference between that. So let's show maybe the difference in how it looks when you would eat it or cut it. So this is our real chocolate. I love these silicone mats, guys. Get you a silicone mat. I use it for everything. All right, this is our real chocolate here. Can you guys see what I'm doing? All right. So let's just cut into our real chocolate. So this is our real chocolate. One thing that I love about chocolate, and you should see, is like I like a nice thin layer of chocolate. I don't feel like it should be such a thick layer of chocolate that it's like waxy on your teeth or anything. You understand what I'm saying? Like it should be a nice thin layer of chocolate around your strawberry. This is a nice dipped strawberry. This is our real chocolate. So let's take a look at our compound chocolate. And to be honest with you, it looks very similar. There is not much of a difference as far as the way it looks. It's still nice and thin. And again, this is because we still, even though we didn't temper the compound chocolate, we still melted it at the right temperature. Had you made it too hot, it would be thicker, because that's why someone was saying like it kept getting thick. It's not thin enough. It was probably because you were overheating it, and it's going to make the chocolate seize up and be thicker. So this is our real chocolate. This is our fake chocolate. Do we really see the difference? Not really. Is it a difference in taste? Absolutely. It's definitely a difference in the taste.
So when it does seize up or get hard on us, because I know at least milk chocolate and dark chocolate is kind of more forgiving than white chocolate. Could you just add more chocolate to it and it'll fix it, or just throw it all away?
Are we talking about no? Once it seizes up and it's burnt because it's burnt. So just think of like scorching something in a pot. You can't. It's never. You can't bring it back. Now, if
Hmm.
if it goes over a little, like say this needs to be at 88. I'm gonna tell you something though. That real chocolate is delicious.
Okay.
You definitely tell a difference. You can definitely tell a difference. Definitely tell a difference. And it's not that this isn't good, but it's like it's hard to explain. It's kind of like having like a real Pepsi versus like the store brand Coke. It's like they might both taste good, but you'll know the difference. You get what I'm saying? You'll know the difference. So anyway, what I was saying was you can't bring it back once you've burnt it. So if you overheat it a little bit, so if it needs to go to 88 degrees, and let's say you got it to like a 94 or 95, that's not burnt. It'll still be, as long as it's still nice and fluid. If you're mixing it, excuse me, and you notice that it's thickening and it's starting to, you'll know what I mean when I say seize up. It starts to like lock up, and you're mixing it, and it's like you dropped water in it, and it's like, ooh, why is it getting stiffer and stiffer? It's probably burnt and it's going to seize up. You can't bring that back. But if it's just at 95, it's still fluid, you're still mixing it, but it's not the right temperature, then that's when you're going to seethe and you're going to add that extra chocolate in to bring the temperature down. Or if you're busy and you're doing something else and you don't feel like to add an extra chocolate, or maybe you forgot to leave some to the side, just let it sit for a little bit. Just keep mixing it and keep checking your temperature. Okay. Any other questions?
How do you keep it from like that clear on the bottom showing? Or when you make your bouquets, how do you keep it from being flat? How do you do it without dripping? Just make it
So if you want to do it without, so, and then let me show you guys one more little trick that I do too before I go for that. I'll tell you. So let me show you a little trick for this. So, all right. So see how you have this, I don't know if you can really see. See how it's like not, you see how you have that little extra pooling around there?
Yeah.
Okay. I use a potato peeler and I
Mm-hmm.
go around the edges of my chocolate. So the potato peeler, I used to use a knife and then I would cut off too much, but a potato peeler is just going to take off just a little bit at a time. And I do this with all my chocolate, my cake pops, my cake sickles, anything chocolate. And then you can just take off the extra and it can go all the way around. Take off a little bit at a time and it'll take off that extra unwanted chocolate that you want. So you'll have a nice thing there. So your question was, how do you prevent, say that again. Oh, so if you don't want it to dry flat like this, what I do is I would use like a skewer. So
Okay.
I would dip it on a skewer, and then I would have like a piece of styrofoam or
Okay.
something that you can stick the skewer down in so that it'll dry standing up, and then it'll be like that if you want to do a bouquet.
Okay.
As far as you were saying, like it being like this on the bottom, so see, like this one showed through on the bottom a little bit. So the only thing that I can say with this is, number one, you don't want to. That's why I said I don't like to really do too much scraping. So you'll see people like after they dip and then they scrape along the bottom. I won't do too much scraping because I don't want to take off too much chocolate, but I also don't want a whole lot of pooling, which is that extra chocolate around the edges. But I'd rather have the little bit of extra chocolate around the edges and then just take my potato peeler and clean it up versus this. So if I saw this was like this, probably what I would do, I wouldn't re-dip it, but I may dip this bottom. Okay, especially if it's going to sit flat because nobody's going to see that. But just to give me a little bit of extra footing on the bottom so that, and it's nothing wrong with it, but you know what'll happen is it'll start to leak. And if I did these tonight, by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, now your strawberries are going to be wet because they're going to start to leak. So if I do get a little bit, I might take and put a little bit of extra chocolate on the bottom and then just let it re-dry.
Gotcha.
Okay. And another way to just prevent that all the way around is to just dip them all on skewers and have them stand straight up, and then you won't have that to worry about.
Okay.
Okay. For me, a lot of my I don't do bouquets. Like I've done that a couple times. Like for like cakes, I like to put like chocolate covered strawberries on like top of cakes sometimes for like decor and have them standing straight up. So I'll do a couple of these. But that would be how you would do it. So you can use like a piece of styrofoam, the dummy cakes, or like the Dollar Tree has styrofoam, and you just stick them down in there and let them dry, and you don't have to worry about that on the bottom.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All righty. So is anybody going to try and temper some chocolate, or are we sticking with our compound chocolate? Who's going to try to temper chocolate?
Try to temper some. I gotta do it. I keep messing everything up. Burning it up. I'm gonna do it.
Yes. And let us know, show us pictures and let us know how it tastes. Like you can definitely taste the difference. And it's like, it's so funny because I eat these all the time. Like I love these. When I make them, the kids like, oh, is it extra? Everybody wants these, right? Because they're good. But as soon as I taste one that's real chocolate, it's like, oh, now I remember. Like, oh, okay, yeah. Now I know the difference. You know what I mean? So, again, it depends on the audience that you're serving. If I'm just doing a pop-up shop or I'm doing an event and I'm having cake sickles or cake pops or something, I'm not going to temper chocolate for that. But if I am doing a wedding, you know what I mean? Like our girl is doing her wedding, you're doing a wedding expo, right? Let's say you get an order from this wedding expo, right? And people want,
Yes.
like I'm like, weddings are not traditional anymore. They don't just want 3-tier white cake. Some people want all cupcakes. Some people want a cake and then they still want cake pops and they want all this stuff at these weddings. So if I was doing a wedding, I'm pulling out the real chocolate for the wedding. You know what I mean? Because you're going to charge accordingly, obviously. And again, it's a wedding. This is the most important day in a lot of most women. This is the most important day of our lives. So you want to pull out all the steps for things like weddings and custom cakes. That's why I love my custom orders. And I feel like that's where I really thrive. That's where I really make my money. That's where I can put all of my time and my effort and my skill into those custom orders. And that's why you can charge the price you charge, because of the talent and the skill that you've learned. But until then, I'm gonna keep using this for those just regular chocolate covered strawberry pops, you know? And I'll save my talent and my skill for my more expensive projects. That's that. So is Thelma the only one that's gonna try out the chocolate? Just get one of these. This was $3 just to try it out and see how you like it.
I have some of
That's
them
too
too.
cheap by you.
Yeah, that's not too bad. And look, I still have chocolate left. I could probably did a good
Buy
6
me
to 8 strawberries. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it.
Give it a try. Make sure you have your thermometer. I will
I'm gonna
post.
try it too.
Good. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy. Yes. Try it. I'm going to post the steps with all the temperatures and everything on there tomorrow. And you can do it either way. You can either do it in the microwave or you can do it through the double boiler method. The double boiler method is cool because it's just in the bowl. You don't have to keep taking it in and out, and you can just check the temperature. You know what I mean? But when I'm just doing a small amount, to me, it just made sense to just kind of do a little bit in the microwave. But yeah, it was pretty good. So I think I'm gonna probably dip the rest of these strawberries in the real chocolate since I already got it.
You ever combined it too?
I never combined the two. I know I've seen it, I've heard it, and like I said, I would think that it probably gives it a better taste, like gives it that more chocolate taste when you add the real chocolate into it. I've never done it. I normally just use one or the other though, but I have seen that people do it.
I'm really tempted to do it.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe since I have these here, I'm going to melt them both down and mix them together and see what happens.
Do it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, because I have a lot of almond bark at home and a lot of different chocolates, and I just want to get rid of it. So I feel like this is my
Oh, well, yeah, and it's that time that you can look. This is the compound chocolate. This thing is like This is hard. I can't even dig down into it, right? And then this is the real chocolate. And even though it's starting to get thicker, it's still melted.
Lord.
This is the real chocolate that we melted first. It's still melted.
I'm gonna try it. I've never used it. I've used the chocolate wafers or the melts or whatever. They're okay, but I didn't really like the texture. Just
Yeah.
seemed like it took forever to get it together.
Yes.
And then I found the almond bark, and so that's what
Yes.
I've been using
I
is the
think
almond
almond
bark.
bark is like the best thing since sliced bread, Shanita.
Yeah, because everything in Michigan is like has giraffes, but I'm just like this is, girl. I'm just saying, like I just
Yeah,
want to.
and do you get it from what? You get it from
I
Walmart?
get it from Walmart. I
Yep,
get it
I
from
get it from
Walmart.
Walmart. And that's I was just saying it went up though, because I know I buy this all the time and it's been like $3.79 or $3.89. When I got it this week, it was like $4.19. So everything is starting to inch up a little bit. Like, so be mindful of that, guys.
Question.
All right, cool, y'all. Thanks. We went over, but not too much. All right, I'll check in with y'all later in the week. I'll post the stuff tomorrow about the tempering, and I'll go in and put the link for the edible paper in tonight.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Salam alaikum. Bye everybody. Have a good week. Let's get some Super Bowl money.
There you go.
See y'all
Bye.
next week.
Yeah, bye-bye.